At, sige po, pang-apat po si ma'am. Okay, sige po, Sir Ferd, kayo na po.
Hi, how are you? Naimbagamalam niyo, Apo. Magandang hapon. Payong hapon. Wow. Okay na?
Okay na, Ferd, sige.
Okay. Hello. I really enjoyed the presentations ever since this morning, and I'm very appreciative to KWF for organizing this conference. I would like to perhaps bring out a elephant in the room, the elephant in the room. So we've seen several presentations about Hawaii, about Ojibwe. It was so inspiring to see children speaking these local languages that were very vulnerable or very threatened, and I commend those efforts. However, I also don't want us to wait until it's too late or until our Philippine languages are so small that we are reduced to these efforts. I'll give you an example. When I travel around Luzon, I go to La Union, which is a traditionally Ilocano-speaking area. I hear many parents not speaking Ilocano to their children. I go to Pampanga, and I hear many Kapampangan parents not speaking Kapampangan to their parents. I go to Pangasinan, I hear many Pangasinan parents not speaking Pangasinanse to their children. And I go to Bicol, and I hear many Bicol parents not speaking Bicol to their children. They have shifted, many of them, to the national language, and in some cases, other regional languages. Bukidnon shifting to Cebuano, Cordilleran groups shifting to Ilocano. So this is a phenomenon, this language shift is a phenomenon not affecting just minority languages, but even our major regional languages. So I don't want to wait for all of these languages to become virtually moribund before we begin language revitalization. My question to you, and maybe a challenge to KWF, is how do we fix the ongoing or existing situation or policies? How do we fix the big elephant in the room that continues to cause this language shift? Perhaps we need to rethink some of our activities. We're not doing enough. When we have a National Language Celebration Month, maybe we should celebrate other Philippine languages as well. Buwan ng mga wika instead of buwan ng wika. Even in the name itself of Commission sa Wikang Filipino, it's Commission on Filipino Language, not languages. So there is, we are affected by a historical idea of monolingualism being superior, and perhaps with KWF's efforts like this, we can rethink some of our activities and gradually move towards multilingualism and how we can embrace pluralism, multilingualism, so that small language or big language, they will stop their eventual decline. And I'm very happy to Ma'am Prem Sirirat for her presenting their efforts in Thailand and mentioning that in addition to working with local communities, they're also working with the national government to rethink a national language policy that is more inclusive and embraces all languages. So thank you very much, and I would just like to hear your reflections on how we can fix the systemic bigger issues at the national level, so to give all our languages a chance. Thank you.
I think Commissioner De Lima will be answering Ferd's question.
Yeah, thank you, Firth. Well, I know Firth from La Union. I'm also from La Union. Changing, for instance, the buwan ng Wika, buwan ng Wikang Filipino to buwan ng mga
Wika.
Buwan ng mga Wika would entail, of course, because we're just following the proclamation order that was issued to celebrate the buwan ng Wikang Filipino. But that can be done, but it will entail, a change of official or legal documents, whatever. Doing more for indigenous languages, no doubt, and I can guarantee you that the Commission, the current administration of the Komisyon sa Wikang Filipino is not only into the nurturing of the Filipino national language, but as well all the languages, the indigenous languages of the Philippines. So if you find, like for instance, we're just too slow or in this effort, I think the fault lies, one, we're just a very small agency, 57 employees to do an entire national revitalization, if you will. But we're doing as much as we can for now. And I know that for a fact because I'm the full-time commissioner for programs and projects, and we can make a list of not only by Wika, which is a revitalization effort, we're doing many more for many more projects and programs for the indigenous languages. No doubt about that, we're taking care of them. But of course, again, we're depending on how much collaboration we can get from other institutions, including government institutions like the LGUs, the local government units. I mean, this Bataan experience for Bahay Wika is exceptional. The Bataan province, for instance, has started with us not only Bahay Wika. In fact, Bahay Wika came later. The Balagtas, celebration of the Balagtas.
Balagtas celebrations held every April 2.
Kampong Balagtas for the training of the youth on the use of on the creative writing is also collaborated by the local government. I mean, so this is even a special case. We hope it would be the same reaction we get if we go to the other LGUs or to the other locations, but for now, we'll see if we have enough data, convincing data to show perhaps the local governments, but we're also networking. We're also networking. From their own initiatives, they come to us to work with some other projects, for some other projects, and with them, we do collaborate, and these are even NGOs. A special mention I'd like to do is the TAP, the Translators Association of the Philippines, whose paper you heard earlier. We're doing that first, no doubt about that.
Thank you very much. We're on to our, if you want to add.
Can I use it?
Yeah.
Is there a possibility that you can have the government, relevant department to have a reconsideration of the national language policy to more supportive to the local languages. We're in Thailand is very conservative, but in the current the drafting of the new language policy, we have six policy. One is on Thai, the national language. The second one is on the foreign languages of commerce, things like that. And then the third one is on local languages. The fourth one is on the language of the deaf and the blind. And we also have the language from labor migrants, and also the policy for the translation and interpretation. So you have a kind of policies, multiple policy for the big policy, and one is on local languages. I think that should be helped because in there we can mention something about the use of the local languages in public, in education, and in other areas. So if that can be reconsidered, I mean, in the future, I think the Philippines government is very, what was the word to say, progressive. You have announced the use of the to implement the multilingual, mother tongue-based multilingual education all over the country. So this is really really good. Really good. We would like to see this, something like this in Thailand too, but we still don't have it. But because you have done something very good and you go with it, they should have a kind of a policy that support the use of the ethnic, of the indigenous languages or local languages in public life, in education. So it will go together and get along very well. I think if you can push that, maybe KWF can propose something. Okay? So Thailand is very conservative, but still, because it's not only the policy for the local language, but it's just one of the language among other important languages. So they accept it. But now it's not yet go through the cabinet. It's already the drafting is already finished. We're just waiting for the right time to submit. So that's what I think. It should be helpful.
Thank you. For the second question, we still have the time for 4 questions. People I've identified. Sir Tuting, first.
Hi, Tuting Hernandez from the Linguistics Department of the University of the Philippines. This is really more a report than a question. Earlier this year, my thesis advisor and I embarked on a rather, quixotic quest. We decided to go search for the Isarog Aita. And I would just like to report that as of June, we've now come up with a grammar sketch of the group. We went to the mountains. Well, he did, because I'm just too arthritic to climb mountains. And they weren't there, but we found them in several municipalities in Pili and surrounding areas. So they have moved from the mountains down to the municipalities. So we've now worked on a grammar sketch of Isarog Aita. We also now have a grammar sketch of Aita Magbukon, and we're coming out with a grammar of Mag-Anshi, which will be launched in November. This November. I also think that we should be quite careful about using the ethnologue scale, the vitality. It has to be more nuanced. It has to be more applied to our experiences. We also have to look at the colonial experience of the Philippines in applying the scale. Because the scale really reads like a checklist. If you have a book written on the language, there's a dictionary existing about the language, etc. So you just tick off all these little boxes, and then you come up with a generalization, whether it's healthy or anything like that. But with our colonial experience, we know that a lot of the smaller languages would have existing grammars written by colonizers, but are not, but are quite endangered at this point. So what I'm saying is we have to be more critical about using the scale, the ethnologue scale. And it's a good report to know that Agta Isarogs are still there. In Barangay Pinit, actually. Thank you. It's not extinct. And yeah, there are linguists in the Philippines too.
Yeah, about the ethnologue data, if you notice, well, ethnologue presents its data, fine. But if you noted in my presentation, KWF validates. In other words, and we come up with our own data. And even with some gaps or differences, for instance, most of our Negrito languages are threatened relatively. And so we have to address the concern, the issue immediately. So, I mean, we don't take data hook, line, and sinker, but we do validate. And that's why I was saying that two languages still nearly extinct, recorded, nearly extinct on the ethnologue data, but upon field validation, we found the language gone. I mean, see. So that's it.
Okay, thank you very much, Commissioner De Lima. I think it's down to our last two questions because our lady over there and the one in the white shirt, that will be for our last question. And again, we may ask our speakers during our break time because we're running short on time. Paumanin. Okay. The question, okay. Okay. Okay, I will relay the question to you for the other questions. Okay, please come closer over here, ma'am. Dito tayo dun sa pangalawang microphone at front and move it closer, please. And takasan po.
Yes. Thank you for the last three presentations. I have taken note that you have actually discussed the campaign for language revitalization or revival in three different regions of the world, and you have come up with varying degrees of success. One is a start-up, one is a decades-old campaign, and of course, in the case of Mahidol, you have leveraged academia for the purpose of language revitalization. My concern really is what factors do you see as, in fact, my question really is, how sure are you that all these initiatives that you have started could be sustained? In the case of the Berber group, which is already a decades-old campaign, were you able to build a network of community-based Berbers, and are you able also to leverage government resources to, since you come from, apparently there were anti-Berber sentiments and movements before on the part of the governments where the Berbers are located, but have you already neutralized that situation now? Okay, so that's my question to to Dr. Masood. In the case of Dr. Prem Srirat, ma'am, congratulations for your program. I have personally witnessed the death of some academic programs that died in my own University of the Philippines where I graduated from, and the reason why they died, these programs died, is because there was very little enrollment for these programs. So there's not much money coming in also to support the continued delivery of these academic programs. Do you not foresee that kind of problem also in your university? And in the case of Dr. De Lima, I wonder, you said that you have just started with Bahay Wika. And of course, since I'm Filipino, I'm very, very happy about that. But I wonder also exactly how long could this very, very beautiful initiative, how long can this be sustained? you know, the government is quite notorious. Philippine government is quite notorious because they would push on with very, very innovative programs and projects only for a very limited time, like 3 to 5 years. But the problem with language revitalization is that it necessarily takes a long, long time, maybe decades, to really turn it into a roaring success as a social program. So, okay, so those are my questions. I think they are basically related to the three speakers.
I guess all the questions are will lead to answering on sustainability of the projects we're undertaking. So for Dr. Ms. Hood, the sustainability of the project with the Berber language, the language of the Berbers, and for Commissioner De Lima with the projects, and for Thailand, the project of making sure that the programs are sustainable. So Dr. Ms. Hood will answer first, and followed by Dr. Suwilay and Dr. De Lima.
Thank you. Sustainability, that's the whole point. Sustainability is what you do with it. What I was trying to explain, unfortunately, I couldn't go through all the different steps that have been taken both in Morocco and Algeria and in Mali and Niger and all those things, is that everything you do, when you have a repressive environment like that, when you have people who believe that only one language should be the national language of the country, only one culture should be predominant, whatever you do, you actually wrest it from them. You take it by force practically. And when you take it, the next step for them is then to try and stop it from working. Now that's what's been hanging on. So that's why my slogan over there was the fight continues, la lucha continúa in Spanish. There were 12 steps or whatever that I was in the chronology, which I couldn't go through. Every time we do something, they recognize something, then come back to something else. Okay, we were not recognized at all. Now the language is in the constitutions of 3 countries. First as a national language, which doesn't mean anything. It just means it's recognized as existing. Secondly, as an official language. Now, we realize that even having it on the Constitution as an official language doesn't mean anything. Because if it's not applied, if it's not put into, given a certain form, it doesn't mean anything. So the sustainability is that you continue following up on that. And, well, if the language is official under the Constitution, let's apply the Constitution. Let's have media in both languages, the national language and the 2 official languages on the Constitution. Let's have the tribunals. This is the most important thing. Let's have lawyers and judges, etc., plead or judge in both languages. That people who speak that can go without the support of an interpreter or anything like that, because they have the right to speak in their own language and be spoken to in their own language. This has not happened. Therefore, these are just steps, and sometimes if you just leave them like that and you think you've acquired a fantastic victory, which, if we think of 50 years ago until now, to have it in official language when it wasn't even recognized is an immense victory. But it hasn't really led anywhere if it's not really applied there. So the next thing now is to force all the governments, and the Libyans are having great problems again, to put it into practice. As I say, I would mention the United Nations, there's an official language and then a working language. It's official, but if you don't write documents, if you don't use it, it's as though it's not there anymore. So sustainability is really what you do. And do not stop at the first step, because governments are very good at throwing little bones and tokenism. It's happened. I mean, the British aristocracy managed to avoid the revolutions in the late 18th and 19th century, but because they made more concessions than any other monarch in Europe. And now Britain still has an aristocracy, which is extremely important, and the others have lost theirs. And it's the same thing, tokenism. Sorry, I don't want to take most of the time on this, but we have now. I mean, I was talking about just one last example. We obtained that the languages are taught at schools. I showed you the manuals of teaching in schools. we wanted them to be written in the Amazigh script is really psychological, but for everyday life we use the Latin script, because then we have access to computer keyboards and things, and we'd have to reinvent them and spend a lot of time. The government wanted us to write the Berber in the Arabic script, which nobody in North Africa wanted. In Morocco, Algeria, whatever, it was a really big fight. So the manuals at first were written in Berber, in the Latin script, and now all of a sudden, about a year ago, they launched the debate again that it's going to be written in the Arabic script without asking anyone. And then the manuals all of a sudden appeared, but now that they've taken the government, written in both scripts, which no Berber speaker wanted, but it's there now. And of course, there are some more activist teachers who, the first thing when they saw them, the first thing they told these people said, take your manuals, open it to page that are in the middle, tear it in two, throw away the one with the Arabic script, because it's the same text, throw it away. But not everybody does that, and the insidious way of coming back. So every victory will be turned into a defeat if you let the other people there. So you have your sustainability is what you create, and it's an everyday fight. It's like when you're trying to get it, you try to push it forward, and you try to play it. Sorry, I've taken a lot of time to answer.
Dr. Suilay?
The question about the sustainability, I think it's actually up to the group, up to the community, the language group. If they would like to continue with all the good things that they have done, they will try. I think they will try, and they will try to pass it on to the younger generation. But still, they need the small local community, the indigenous community. They normally need support, moral support, institutional support, or academic support. So if the outsider also show the sympathy and trying to help them, give them some support as much as possible, I think it can be sustained. There is something from my experience. I found that teaching in the school cannot last very long, because sometimes it's the policy of the Ministry of Education. They are not very much interested in small languages. They are interested more in the language of wider communication. So they give more support to that, but not to the local community. So this does not last very long, because they have got to find some budget for the teacher, for hiring the teacher, because they cannot be volunteer all their life. They are not rich people. They have got to work. They can spend some time, helping their group, but not all their life. So they need the support from the government, or from government or institutional support. They need that. So, but there is one thing that I noticed that is lasts very long, is the writing system, orthography development, that they are involved in developing the writing system for their own language. From our experience, the first group that we worked with on language revitalization, all the activities stopped after the project finished. But still, even now, 10 years has passed, they still use the orthography, and sometimes they work on other projects, and they can still use it. So this can be sustainable. The knowledge that they develop by themselves, and they practice and they use it. So for sustainability, I think it's rather difficult to expect. It may be too ambitious. So we should expect something that is possible. But outsider, I think the society at large can help. If you have, talk about talk about the supporting the smaller group, like the heritage of humanity, heritage of the nation or something like that. Maybe you can get some support. They need support, moral support, psychological support, and also some of the institutional support. Something, that can be in the policy. We have the Ministry of Culture, and they try to, because they try to find the treasure, the national treasure, something like that. So we try to push the language, indigenous language in, not only dancing and some of the handicraft. Why don't you are interested in the language of the indigenous group, because they have been trying to work on revitalizing their own languages. So, and then finally they accept. So they are now registered, some of them, one by one, register as the national treasure, something like that. And that's really helpful psychologically. I don't know, there are ways. The media also important. Everybody can help. And it's up to the community, whether they would like to keep it sustainable or not. But even though they need outside support, but their own determination is also very, very important.
Thank you very much, Dr. Swilay. Commissioner De Lima. And I would honor the last question. Please ready your question for your last question.
Sustainability para sa bahay wika. Kung napansin nyo, may prayer, yung aking concluding slide. Prayer na sana ay patuloy yung suporta at kolaborasyon ng mga institusyon at ahensya na nag-umpisa, at nag-initiate nitong programang ito. Subalit, babanggitin ko, at nabanggit ko rin sa ilang slide ko, na ito ay itinakda, yung programang Bahay Wika, itinakda para sa 2 taon na pilot. Ibig sabihin, data gathering, etc., for improving the program. Hopefully, will be enough for the 2 years. And then, it is supposed to be a capacity building program. I mean, all revitalization efforts should not be manned by outsiders' efforts, but it's a capacity building. It should be a capacity building thing. So we foresee that it will be ready for turning over by end of 2nd year. With the community owning it, and the local government and the other within the province, the other efforts within the province. So dapat yan, ganyan. So lalabas na yung KWF dyan, at para makapunta naman ang KWF sa ibang lokasyon, sa ibang mga nanganganib na wika. I mean, ganun yun. It's capacity building and empowering the community. Napakita nga ako ng quotation kay Fishman, and he has the same frame of mind, that it should be the community that's foremost interested and fully determined to continue the program. By 2 years siguro, meron na kaming enough data of fluency, proficiency to tabulate, and so we'll see a more positive output and outcome. At dapat lang matuwa yung community na nare-realize yung natukoy na layunin nung programa in 2 years' time. And so dapat yon ang pagpapatuloy nung programa ay nasa komunidad na. Meron ganung pagpaplano para do sa programang Bahay Wika. hindi naman palaging nandun na lang yung effort at initiative ng isang ahensyang katulad ng Komisyon sa Wikang Filipino, lalo na meron maraming naghihintay. There are many other cases that also need that kind of attention and can be empowered, can be prepared to run the same program. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm really sorry we're out of time. Pwede naman po matanong ang ating mga speaker sa ikatlong araw. At so, kahit pagbaba nila, pwede po kung nais nyo po, tanungin sila. Meron pa po tayong isang araw para sa inyong mga tanong. At nais ko pong basahin muna at pagkaloob